it's Elliot Jacobson here, and today I want to finish the three-part series that I am creating on hole carding three-card poker. So we've already covered the basics of the game, and then I tried to convince you that simple is not easy, not a good game to be playing if you can find anything else. But today I want to finish by just covering the table tactics, the sort of things that you should know if you're going to actually try and play this game, or helpful information to anyone who wants to defend this game. So again, check out these episodes over here if you are not caught up. This is episode number 3. So let's just get started. As usual, I have a PowerPoint to go through today. So to get started, so just a reminder, basic strategy, this is the second easiest game next to roulette. In roulette, every bet's the same. In this game, well, you look at the 3 cards that you're dealt, and if those 3 cards are a queen, 6-4 or higher, you make a play bet. Otherwise, you fold. House edge is 3.37%. You're done. And if you happen to be lucky enough to be sitting in a seat with a dealer who's exposing one of her 3 cards to you before you make your playful decision, then the world's easiest hole card strategy, if you see a 2 through a jack, you make the play bet. If you see a queen, king, or ace, you play queen 9-2, king 9-2, or ace 9-2 or higher as your delineated hand. So that's it. And with that super easy hole card strategy, 3.48%. Well, all right, just to remind you again, this is what the table looks like typically, and here is the shuffler. And maybe you're sitting somewhere around first base and you are getting a view as the dealer removes the cards from the ideal shuffler here on the table. The dealer's maybe lifting the cards up a little bit too high, and you are catching the bottom card. So how do we actually get away with this in practice if our intention is to hole card this game? Well, the first thing we need is somebody who has really good eyesight, who is going to be getting the read. And that person is typically referred to as the spotter. So the spotter is going to have great eyesight, should be someone who is relatively short. It's just easier if you are short. And somebody who is just used to getting the read. So maybe they are able to get the card, just seeing a little part of it for a fraction of a second, they can still reliably get a read. And when we talk about reliability, if that spotter is making one mistake a day, one mistake out of every 150 hands or so, then we already are having a big problem. We need a spotter who is essentially flawless with an occasional mistake, maybe every couple of days. It's a very tough job. But what the spotter needs to do is to not let anybody know that she is seeing that card. So it's probably best if that spotter just play basic strategy at a very low level so that they are not attracting attention to themselves. If the spotter is also playing a hole card strategy, well then it may look like that person, for example, folding an ace or playing a 5-3-2 offsuit, like that person is making a little bit too obvious what they're doing. Also, if you're going to have a single other player, a so-called big player, putting down big money, or if you're going to have a team, either way, it's best to have that spotter at the table first before anyone else arrives. The spotter then can figure out the best seat for themselves, and they can establish themselves as a player at that game who is completely unrelated to the big money that's going to be going down on that table soon. It's also important that the big players stay after the whatever action has taken place is done, because that is going to allow that person to, for example, overhear any pit chatter. And for example, if you hear the pit talking about how rude the players were at the table because they weren't tipping, well, that's actually really good information that the spotter can relay later to the team, because what it says is that the pit was unaware of what was really going on, that there was a hole card player going down. They're complaining about tips instead of saying, hey, you think those guys might have been doing something funny? again, information, any information that is shared in the pit that somebody outside of the pit can overhear is potentially useful to the team. So then we have the big player. Now, it may be the case there's more than one big player. A few people may come in sort of as friends playing together, whatever. Those people need to essentially not know the spotter, avoid looking at the spotter. They should position themselves, or the one big player, if there's only one, should position so that they can see the signals that the spotter is sending without having to clearly look that direction. So their job is to just pretend like they're not paying attention, they're just there having fun, but just get the big money down, get the signal, and make sure that in whatever way possible, that there is no clear relationship between the big player and the spotter going on. So it may be, again, if the spotter overhears some pit chatter or for any other reason, it may be reasonable to use different combinations of big players and spotters over time. Now, there are a variety of ways to signal. Chip signals are the most common because all we need to do is signal one of four things. It's a low card, it's a queen, a king, or an ace. So there are four things to signal. Well, you can do that with stacking either 1, 2, 3, or 4 chips, or the positions of a chip in a certain way at either 12 o'clock, 3, 6, or 9 o'clock. There's all sorts of different ways you can do it. If you have 4 denominations of chips, you could just sit there playing with the denomination, fiddling with it, and that would also be a way of indicating which card you see. Lots of ways. Or you could do a physical signal. We would do this sort of thing, or this sort of thing, or this sort of thing, or touching the arm, scratching it somewhere, scratching your arm in some location. So there's all sorts of ways of doing signaling. Probably the best way is a verbal signal, because verbal signals can't be recorded by a camera in surveillance if they're assuming they're not recording audio. So as a team that I've been on, we would often try and use verbal signals. For example, if we came in as friends, we might say, hey, are you going over to Kevin's house for a barbecue this weekend? Of course, Kevin starts with a K, so that would indicate a king. So another tactic we would use is if the spotter saw a card 2 through Jack, well, they would just play blind. See, it doesn't matter what card you hold. If it's a 2 through Jack, you're always going to make your play bet. So you wait for the spotter to just say something like, I think I'll play this one blind. And then the rest of the team can go, yeah, hey, let's all play this one blind. You can all play without looking at your cards. And that way you don't even give away the fact that there's a correlation between the fact that you're doing a play all strategy and the fact that the spotter has seen a low card. So many different combinations of this can take place, but really, if you have a team of people, friends playing together, including the spotter being one of those friends, then verbal signals can be quite effective. So because of that, there are some tells. And for you guys in surveillance or management who are watching this, here are some tells that you should watch for. Like I just said, playing blind is an effective strategy. If you know that the whole card is a low card, a 2 through a Jack, you know you're going to play whatever you're going to hold. And it looks kind of dumb for you to pick up your cards, examine them, see they're a 2, 3, 5 offsuit, and then make a play bet. It's much more natural to just say, hey, I think I'll gamble this hand, and just not even look at your cards. So oftentimes you may see other people at the table not looking at their cards, not picking them up right away till after the spotter has looked at her cards and made a determination. Rarely make the pair plus bet. The pair plus bet is an optional side bet, and it has typically over a 7% house edge. So any money on the pair plus bet has to be considered camouflage. It's just wasted money. I've seen people put down $100 bets or $200 bets on the anti-bet and a $5 bet on the pair plus just to make a show of it, because the typical player makes that bet. So there is a little bit of well, it's a huge tell if you're just playing the ante and not the pair plus. So look for a large discrepancy where there's a large wager going down on the ante and a very small on the pair plus. And again, I talked about teammates and verbal signals. If you see a whole group of people sort of playing blind together, if you hear a lot of chatter, that could be something just to pay attention to. If other weird things are happening, that chatter may be coded language. And of course, look for somebody short at first or third base, usually opposite from the shuffler. Sometimes you get a read mid-table. So either mid-table or opposite the direction, depending on the dealer's problem. But certainly short helps, because you don't want to have to do any of these other plays that I was talking about in my previous first video, where you dip down or you lean back or you do a crane. You really want to just be able to sit naturally and see the card every time. It really helps to be short. I'm 5'7", and I found that to be too tall. The best spotters out there were 5'2", would be sort of a typical spotter. All right, so those are some tells, and let me just talk to you very quickly about some other opportunities you may see. For example, a game where you cannot distinguish which paint card it is. The dealer may be very fast, and you can make out whether it's a 2 through a jack, or you can make out if it's an ace, but the face cards, the paint cards, just go by too quickly, jack, queen, king. So anytime you can't tell which one of those it is, then the right strategy is to play queen, jack, 5 or higher, and you no longer have that 3.48% edge over the house. You have a 2.41% edge over the house using this paint, non-paint strategy. Of course, if you happen to see 2 hole cards and you play an optimal strategy, that's 17.2%. And if in the situation where you see all 3 of the dealer hole cards, which I have run across just a couple times for very brief periods of time, you can get a huge edge, 37.88%, and essentially you make the play bet whenever your hand is better than the dealer's. Otherwise, you fold, right? So that is pretty straightforward. All right, so let me just talk very quickly about some of my experiences as being on a team like this. First of all, I played a lot with a group of people that we would meet up at the Starbucks at Golden Nugget at 4 o'clock, and whoever showed up there, we would divvy up Las Vegas, certain parts of the Strip and downtown, and we would all go in search of a superstar, someone who was just a flasher who showed the world what they had. And then we would all, once that person had located a superstar flasher, we would all descend on that casino, and usually about 20 minutes later, and we would set up for the game. So one of the times we did that, I very clearly recall we were at the Bellagio. This may have been 2002, maybe early 2003. And there was, among the 5 of us, was Doc and Eagle Eyes. Now, Doc was a 70-year-old plus retired physician, and Eagle Eyes was this very short, but just keen, smart, and super clear vision young Asian woman. And she was the spotter, and they were betting. She would bet somewhere in the range of $50 a hand. He would bet $1,200 a hand at 3-card poker at the Bellagio. I sat at that table, and then a couple other guys. One I remember went by the name of Goose. Hi, Goose, if you're watching this. And I still remember this one day when we just did this hour after hour after hour. I think we were there close to 8 hours. And at some point, one of the pit bosses walked up to us and said, "Hey, I know what you guys are doing, but I don't care. I'm quitting this place tomorrow. So just have fun." And you know, we were busted. We were clearly busted. And it was sort of an interesting situation. We did feel a little bit awkward, but we kept on playing. So we apparently did not get away with it, even though we thought we were pretty good. I used to go to Las Vegas when a group of friends of mine from Florida would fly into town. And there we had a fellow on our team who's about 5'2", maybe 5'3", who would be our spotter. And we would play throughout downtown Las Vegas. And we did the same thing. We would just meet up at the Starbucks in front of the Golden Nugget, and then we would each go and check out a different casino or two throughout the downtown area. And we're talking 2001, early 2002, and you could find games everywhere. It was almost always the case that if we went to every casino in downtown Las Vegas, we would find at least one superstar. We would descend on that game and have a lot of fun. I remember games at Fitzgerald's, at the Golden Nugget, at the Plaza, and just about everywhere else we would find great games to look at. I only remember getting busted once. That was at the Four Queens, I believe, and we sat down and the pit boss came up to us and said, "Hey guys, stop it or cool it. We know what you're doing." And it was kind of interesting because there was no hard feelings in a way. It's like they just knew this was a problem with the game. But at the time, they just didn't take three-card poker seriously. This was way early on in the era of these proprietary games, and nobody was really thinking about hole carding these games as the threat that it genuinely could be. And somewhere along the line, I stumbled into the Circus, and they were hand dealing. They had an entire pit where they were hand dealing the games. And there were a couple dealers that were just flashing every single card as they dealt it. They just were completely careless, did not even think about trying to protect their cards. It was a casual game, and nobody took it seriously. And if you saw 3 cards, then they didn't even think you would pay attention to that because they weren't paying attention. So there were some remarkable opportunities. At the time, there was a period of time that I was backed off at the Chumash Casino. I was then allowed back in, I think in 2002 or 3. And I was not allowed to play any of the carnival games or blackjack, but I was there playing poker in the poker room. And I would walk by and just have a glance at these games, and I noticed that they had a whole bunch of flashers on their 3-card poker. And at the time, I had some students at UCSB when I was a college professor who were looking for some opportunities. And I said, "Hey guys, why don't you check out hole carding 3-card poker at the Chumash?" And then they told me that they did that, and they did that over and over and over for months. And apparently, I don't remember exactly the number they told me, but apparently they were well into 5 figures before they got backed off from the Chumash. So, you know, it is a game where some people have succeeded mightily and had great results, and others, like myself, may have broken even, and some, like my friend, who took the $60,000 bankroll and played for 2 months and just lost and lost. So there are all sorts of stories. This is not an easy game to beat by hole carding, but it is certainly one that is worthy of discussion. So that's about it, right? I hope this has been helpful to you, and whether you want to go out and try and play 3-card poker as a whole card player, or you're interested in learning about it so that you can better defend your own casino, I hope this information has been helpful to you. This is Elliot Jacobson. See you later.